I'm really happy that I got to see in person. And that's AJ Johnson. He is headed to the Illawarra Hawks in the NBL. Originally had committed to Texas before decommitting. And I think he's somebody that, the No Ceilings crew is found really interesting. I know, you texted me last week saying that he was somebody who was really intriguing to you. So we're going to, kind of run through his basic game and teach everybody what they should expect watching him this season as we head into the 2024 NBA draft cycle. So what are your just like overall initial impressions about AJ's game?
First off, Corey, I want to go back to the point that you made before about this being a group of wild cards. I couldn't agree with you more, dude. Like, I think this trio right here, the variance of outcomes that we can get with these three guys is extremely, extremely wide. You can't help but wonder what that Texas team would have looked like if him and Ron Holland ended up going there. But with AJ, I think he's interesting, man. I think the size is good, long, lanky build. The first thing that I wrote in my notes is I really hope he bulks up a little bit. He is pretty thin. He's kind of to the point where like he looks narrow to me, if that makes sense. And I think he's got, good athleticism, good passing feel. The shot is interesting, is what I wrote, because I'm not in love with it, nor do I hate it. But I think that's kind of like where I want to start. Oh, sorry, Corey, I actually can't hear you.
You know what? I was muted. AJ is a 6'6" combo guard. I would classify him as. He's a guy who can play with the ball in his hands. He's a guy who can play off the ball as well. And, I think that starting with his shooting is smart, because I think for AJ, that's kind of going to be one of the major swing skills. I mean, I think he's a good shooter already. I'll just start that there. But it's like, how great of a shooter is he / can he be? Because if he's a great off the bounce shot maker, it raises his ceiling, especially in a draft class like this. Now, I'll say, like, I got a chance to see him up close at the Iverson Classic. And he was a guy who, out of that entire grouping, I was like, yo, this kid is on another level. Like, he just stood out to me in a way where it was like he moved differently than everybody else. I mean, it's an all-star game setting, so it's free flowing, it's up and down, definitely fit his style really well, but it looked so effortless. And like in a game where everybody's kind of shot hunting, everything came naturally. It flowed. Like, he wasn't forcing his shots, but he was still getting off when he had the ball. And he just didn't have to work as hard as everybody else to get these looks off. So I think with his shooting, I mean, and we see in this clip, in this highlight video that we just saw, like, he can knock some shots down with a hand in his face off the bounce. And I think that is an integral skill for a shot creator. And it's one that some of the other guards in this class don't necessarily have in their bag in the same way that AJ does. So you said that you don't love it, you don't hate it. What are your concerns, or what do you like about it? Take me through why you have these feelings with his shot.
I'm so sorry. I feel like mechanically, I really like the shot a lot. I think where I want to see, not that I'm even questioning it or doubting it, I want to see what it looks like in the NBL against tougher competition. And I want to see him do it more off the dribble, is kind of where I'm at. Once again, I'm not doubting it. I'm not saying that he's going to be, that I think he's a bad shooter or at all, but I like to see a little bit more off the bounce, because Corey, I think what you said is extremely important. Where he ends up as an off the dribble shooter may really swing where his draft stock actually ends up, because I think the size, length, athleticism is there. And I think it's only going to get better, in my opinion. The playmaking, obviously, you're showing a clip right here, it's there. I think, I'm not saying he's an elite playmaker, but I think it's good enough for a guy that we'll probably consider a combo wing. He may even grow to be 6'7", 6'8", who knows, right? So to have that type of playmaking, I think is awesome. It's just, I thought at times the shooting off the dribble could get a little bit tighter, a little bit better. But that's the thing about being a high school player and now going into the NBL. I think he's going to get some really good professional coaching down there in the down under for the Illawarra Hawks, playing alongside some good players down there as well. And, formerly LaMelo played there as well. So
Mhm.
I think it'll be a good opportunity for me, like just for me and on the scouting side, to see how that continues to develop and what it looks like against different competition.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he kind of has the same freedom that LaMelo had there.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
LaMelo was given the keys, and I kind of feel like he's gonna be given the keys as well. Now he's a different kind of player. There's definitely similarities between he and LaMelo, but there are some similarities and I think stylistically and how they can play in that league. And LaMelo had free reign, boy. Now I think that's going to be good for him because I think he needs those reps. The shot creation, I mean, I think he can certainly dance with the ball and get those shots off. He's got a quick trigger. I think he shoots a smooth ball. But I think, like that's kind of like end of shot clock stuff. Like when he
Hmm.
does that, it's very Jamal Crawford
Hmm.
esque. Ultimately, I think he's going to be a guy who's just like really thriving in ball screens, especially in the NBL. You mentioned him playing in that league. He's really skinny, and that frame, which he's definitely working on. You see videos of him. He's in the gym with Jalen Green. Jalen Green is like his brother, somebody he
Yeah.
grew up with. So, they're very, very close. So they're training together. They've been training together for years. He's going to the pro runs. Like he's getting himself prepared at least to play against, highly talented physical guys in that league. But still, it's something that, I think like he could dance with the ball and somebody gets in him and just physically they might bump him off the spot a little bit, throw him off his game, his rhythm in a way that high school kids really can't do consistently. You
Hmm.
have kids every now and then who can match up and overwhelm him physically, but for the most part, it's all lanky kids who are growing into their frames. That's not going to be the case. But I think that his pick and roll play, his ability to shoot off screens, going in either direction, like coming
Hmm.
off and shooting, pulling up, going to his right, which is more difficult for some shooters. It's much easier for righties to pull up to their left.
Hmm.
He could do it both ways. He's got like little crafty moves where he could like step back on closeouts to create space. I I really think that he is a guy who's going to be considered more of a shot maker than a shooter, but I think that the shot is pretty damn smooth as is. And I also like that he can shoot it off the ball, off the catch, and that'll allow him to not only knock down spot up easy looks off the catch, but to also attack those closeouts, get into the paint, and make use of that playmaking and that rim attack ability.
Yeah. Corey, just to kind of, bounce off of some of the things that you said there, something that I wrote in my notes here, when he's attacking the rim, I wrote, he doesn't bounce off of guys, but guys just kind of bounce him. And then I think that's kind of a product of the frame. But Corey, like you said, like he's really close to Jalen Green. I was watching this video where they were talking about how he's known him since he was in like 7th, 8th grade, been working out with him for a very long time. That's why they call him like Jalen Green's brother. Although they're not, for our listeners out there, they're not actually brothers. They're just that close. I want to make that clear for you guys. But yeah, I'm with you, Corey. I think the passing feels really good. I think the shot, I'm with you once again. Like I'm not a hater of the shot. I just want to see it against a little bit harder competition, and what it looks like against more physical defenders and how he gets it off and stuff like that. But yeah, and Corey, I did want to say, like, I know he's called like Jalen Green's brother, so people will talk about that. I wanted to ask you, what type of athlete do you think he is? Because when I was watching, I thought he was a good athlete. Now, growing up, even in our Korean American context, we had some really athletic dudes. And I think back to one of my buddies in college, his name was Andrew, and wow, man, he probably maxed out at like 150 pounds at like 5'7", 5'8", but he would just glide in the air. could dunk, could grab the rim 2 hands, like no problem at all. And watching AJ Green, sorry, wow, AJ Green. Now I'm mixing the two. I'm going to the NFL,
The
but
Bengals.
AJ Johnson. Maybe it's also because I saw Bengals on the screen before, but AJ Johnson is clearly a lighter guy. He is athletic. I'm not saying he's not an athlete, but I wondered, to what level do you see his athleticism? Because I thought he was a good athlete, but I didn't see elite athleticism. But also, I might just be kind of in my head about it. So kind of wanted to pick your brain.
No, I don't think you are at all. In my nose, I literally have good athlete.
Okay.
I think he meets the requisite athletic thresholds to not be athletically overwhelmed as he goes up levels.
Okay.
Now I think he's one of those guys, like he's long and lanky.
Yeah.
With I don't know what his wingspan is yet. That information for high school kids is typically pretty hard to get. But I think that he's one of those guys that, because he's so long, he can kind of, when he's dunking, maybe it looks like he's got more vertical pop than he does, because he can kind of almost dunk on the way up sometimes. But he could throw a windmill down, and when he's got space, I think he could really take off. But I just think as he gets stronger, as he starts putting muscle onto that frame, and healthy muscle, and muscle with direction, not just like getting in the weight room aimlessly to get, like actually having professional strength training programs to make him more athletic, I think you'll see more of that. And I do think that, he's going to put some people on a poster at times. I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing, but like, if he gets stronger, I do think he's got the ability with a runway to like get up to a point where it's like, if you're late, you might end up on that poster. What I'll say is, though, like, I don't think the bounce is super important for him. Because I think he's very skill based. I think that athletically, the area I want to see him improve on the most is kind of like that first step burst. Because like I don't think he's slow. I think he has some quickness, but I think that if he can master that kind of like slow to like lightning quick, I'm not saying he has to be Amen Thompson or anything, but just really, really expanding on that burst, like a track athlete, shooting off the line. I think that would really help him as he goes up levels, and I think it's somewhere he can get to. But yeah, I think he's just a good, not special athlete, and I think it meets the requisite thresholds.
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. That's what I wrote. I wrote the same thing too. I think he's a good athlete. Didn't see anything that was great. But Corey, I think the point you made after that is important too, where maybe he doesn't need to be an elite athlete, especially if most of his games could be predicated on his skill and the finesse part of his stuff. And I was reading the Athletics 2024 mock draft, and they were saying how he needs to work on his mentality because he's more of a pass first guy than a shoot first guy. And I was like, well, I think I disagree. I kind of don't mind that he's a pass first guy, because I think it's really cool to have a 6'7", 6'6" initiator that, is looking to keep his teammates involved and pass the ball. Now, of course, like if he, if they think that he needs to do more of the scoring, but like at the same time, like I don't see it as a major issue, especially at his age. Like I'd rather have a guy like this who is a pass first guy who's looking to be selfless and get everyone involved, and then continues to work on his scoring game as his body fills out. I think I'm totally fine with that as well. So just kind of wanted to throw that in there because I don't see it as a major issue.
I also don't necessarily know if I would classify him as pass first. I don't know if I would classify him as shoot first. I think, but I don't think I would classify him as pass first. I do think that some of the teams he played on, like he almost had to be shoot first, like on that Donda team, like Rob Dillingham, another kid who's going to LSU. Like if he didn't shoot first, like my dude was not getting the rock back. Like he ain't getting it back. On SoCal, he's playing with Garway Dual, who we really like, who really showed out at the Hoop Summit. And Dual was the point guard on that team, right? Like AJ was kind of the off guard. So, I mean, I actually, as far as his playmaking goes, I think that he's shown a really high knack for either like getting into the paint and making those like last second, like collapse the defense, improvise and hit like a cutter or a shooter, or even like coming off a ball screen and hitting that little like wraparound pass for like a
Yeah.
pick and pop. Where I think that I want to see him improve as a playmaker is making those next level reads, like the consistent, like I'm coming off the ball screen to my right or my left. I'm pulling the help side to split the court, and now I can make those weak side hits consistently. That's where I want to see him improve on, and I think the NBL, it's going to be a good place for him to kind of work on those skills. But yeah, it's hard for a guy like him, 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", whatever he ends up being by the time he gets drafted. Yeah, even if he is pass first with those shot creation skills, I still think that's a really valuable guy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100% agree. 100% agree.
Now, my major concern with AJ, especially going to the NBL, which is a physical league, is the rim finishing. Because he is skinny, even if he's working on his body, it's not like that transformation is going to be complete by the time that league starts playing and finishes its season, right? Like, this is a young kid who's going to have to put a ton of work into that. I think he's got these crafty, Euro steps and getting into the lane and the touch stuff. When he's got to go into someone's chest, you've said it, he gets moved off his spot. And I think that's going to be an area that we perceive as a weakness, because right now it is a weakness for him. He doesn't have the strength to consistently go into people and handle that physicality and draw a ton of free throws and do that consistently. So that's kind of what I'm going to be interested in watching, is just how like those rim percentages end up, and how that is perceived by like the scouting community as like, are we going to overreact to it if he's not finishing at the adequate level? And we're going to drop him a ton, or, are we going to give him some leeway because he is playing in a pro league? That's kind of like, is he going to be LaMelo or RJ Hampton in perception is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again. The physicality is going to be something he's really going to have to adapt to. And as we've seen in the past, the NBL is not a soft league by any stretch of the imagination. That's a pretty tough league. Those guys down there, they play a physical brand of ball. It's also like a pretty fast paced league. Like from what I remember, NBL, it's a lot of transition stuff, which will be good for him, right? Like he likes to run out in transition and do stuff like that. But no matter where you're playing on planet Earth, there is going to be half court basketball, and there are going to be different situations where he's going to have to figure out how to finish through larger people. And I think, Corey, you mentioned it. There are certain flashes with him that are nice. I think the footwork is pretty good. He's shown like a pretty nice Euro step when he gets in the lane, different angles, utilization of his length. All that is good, but I mean, there could be some really strong dudes and the type of strength that he's never seen before. I mean, he's probably seen it in pro runs, but to see it on a consistent basis in a league that he's playing in, I think it will be a little bit different. So to see how he copes with that, it will be good. But Corey, I think I'm on the side where maybe it's because of what happened with LaMelo. But I feel like I'm going to end up on the side of like being a little bit more lenient with him. Because when LaMelo was coming out, I was so hard on LaMelo, and I was like, dude, like so much of what he's doing is so nasty and it's disgusting and I hate it. But what we came to learn later on was that, yeah, I mean, even now LaMelo's not the perfect player, but I feel like he is a better version of a player than what we saw in the NBL, because I felt like also a lot of what he was doing in the NBL was kind of getting out some of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the poison, some of the venom was coming out with him just doing dumb things in the NBL and learning from him. So I think with AJ, I think he'll have a good opportunity to go down there and try things, experience a level of basketball that he probably hasn't experienced on a consistent level. And, I also think his team will be pretty good too. And I say that just because, my guy Hyunjung Lee's on his team. And I think the type of spacing and, connectivity that he has that playing next to AJ will be beneficial to him as well. So I'm excited for the whole experience as a whole, but I really do think that for me personally, at least, I think I might be a little bit more lenient when it comes to his evaluation later on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. You know, it's funny. I was really hard on LaMelo too, and like I had him at 3. So like even with all of how much I hated the way he played at times, it was like he's just so obnoxiously talented that like at 6'8" or whatever that you kind of have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Um, but I definitely think that that is gonna, be like, all right, we hated a lot of the stuff that he did, but he was experimenting. It's
Mhm.
almost, and it's something that I've like carried over to like how I evaluate like overtime too. Like, uh, yeah, there when there's not a lot of structure, it's you can't learn everything, but I think there are things that you can learn because they're getting to like experiment in ways that maybe he wouldn't have if he stayed committed to Texas. Right. And he'd have to play much more structured. And that would be good. There are things you can learn like that, but there's also stuff that you can learn pushing your boundaries against grown men. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. Where do you have AJ? Like right now, like obviously, um, you know, our boards are very fluid. So, I don't think that you need to give me like a exact ranking, but where like what kind of range are you thinking about him kind of preseason?
Um, so something I mentioned before is that like my big board isn't necessarily a big board. It's just like a list of names. But just looked at it and I started laughing because I have him right behind Justin Edwards. But that is not that is not an accurate representation of where I have AJ Johnson. That's just how my list looks right now. I think right now, with how excited I am about his game. Although I feel like I haven't sounded that excited about him on this pod. But no, I like him kind of like in my top 15 right now,
Mhm.
is kind of how I feel. Where I feel like I could even push him higher or push him lower. I feel very kind of in the middle, which is why I feel like 15 is a nice place because I see him as a first round talent, but I feel very weird about where I think he's going to end up on my board. So right now, I would say like top 15 ish.
Yeah, I think I have him at like 5 or 6, but like a weary 5 or 6 just because of the NBL thing. Like, and until I see his role, like I don't want to get like too overly excited about it. And I think that like going back to the frame, having, we'll see how the defense looks there. Can't look worse than LaMelo's did, so that'll be good at least. But yeah, I just he blew me away at the Iverson Classic, man.
Got it.
Like, and he's undoubtedly gotten better since then because he's been working. Um, so I just think the trajectory that he's on and the raw talent, and like if he just ends up somewhere where they can really mold it, and hopefully this year this is one of those spots. Uh, I think the sky is the limit for him as far as potential goes, and I think worst case for a guy like him, it's like you're like, maybe he could be Jamal Crawford or Lou Williams or something. So I think he's got the size and the length to, as he does fill out, like at least he could have some, positional versatility. So I'm kind of in on that right now. I think that his potential's through the roof. He could be a big time riser, but I'm not married to the ranking of any of the guys that we're covering today. So